Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hash It Out Show. I'm your host, JB, your sports guy. We have a great show on hand for you all tonight. I'm joined by my co-host. You can catch him on CrescentCitySports.com, the one, the only, VK Jones. VK, what's going on?
Good evening, everybody. What's going on? What's going on? People from all over the state, all over the world. Like, tag, share, and subscribe to the Hash It Out show on all social media platforms. We're live on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. We're on every Tuesday, on Wednesday and Thursday, but some days we are on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But we have our prep previews been going on all these last couple of weeks. We're going to keep it going tonight in one of the deepest areas in the state of Louisiana, and we got a legend joining us tonight as well. Jared, go ahead and introduce tonight's guest.
That's right. We do have a legend joining us. You can find her with the Advocate of Baton Rouge, and she's going to break it down for us tonight for all the Baton Rouge area high school football teams. We are joined by the one, the only, Robin Fambrough. Robin, how are you doing?
Doing good. How about you guys this evening?
We are doing
I'm
wonderful.
doing great. We're glad to have you on.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We are
glad to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Let's get right into it. I want to start with the district that has pretty much some of the best teams in the whole state. We're talking about Zachary Catholic. I want to start with Zachary first. Do you think Zachary has a chance to reclaim the district championship and get back to the state championship?
I never count them out in any case. Now, the circumstances are a little different this year. I'm actually writing a little story about it right now. This is the first time they've had a quarterback competition since 2016. Because you had Eli Holstein, who played for 3 years. He's at Alabama. Then you had Keelan Brown before that. The little trivia point that most people don't realize is that Keelan Brown actually beat out Alex Milazzo, the catcher for LSU. They vied for the starting job at quarterback, and Alex played DB for a little while. But they've got a couple of guys that have kind of waited their turn. Hudson Spangler is the senior, and then Caleb Gonzalez is a junior. And they've got a lot of targets out there. And you guys probably know that Trades Green, who played at East Feliciana, was an all-state player in football and basketball. He has moved to Zachary.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to use him as a receiver. But they also have other receivers who are returning, and they have a running back, Cam Thomas, who got quite a bit of action last year. But the biggest thing for them is always how they protect their quarterback and how good they are. They were not young last year, but they had some new guys in there and some nice pieces. And, all of those guys now are a year older and a year bigger. My joke is every week I think somebody different commits. But they've got one young man, Kavion Broussard, who's like 6'6", 280. And you've got nice size across the front. Luke Wisham, the receiver, whose brother played at UL. He's going to go play at UL. He just committed this past week. Defensively, they've got guys that have been on that side of the ball and have played at a high level in big-time games. And, they've got that possibility. And then Catholic, of course, changed coaches with Coach coming in from West Feliciana, Hudson Fuller, who had been an offensive coordinator at Catholic. And then, if you remember, he went to the semifinals last year with Westphal. They actually hosted Lutcher in the semis. So you've got most people don't realize it's a pipeline for UL, I guess, but ULL, Daniel Beal, the quarterback for Catholic, was the all-state quarterback last year. He was also the district quarterback. And the thing about that was amazing was in that district you had Holstein, you had Beal, and then you also had Zay Tizet at Scotlandville, who I actually think depending on how things go, Zay might have a shot at playing a little bit for Southern this year. That's who he signed with. So, Daniel Beal being a returning All-State quarterback. Again, they're kind of like Zachary. They always have targets. They've got a young man, Cohen LeBlanc, coming back, who I believe is a junior this year. His grandfather was a coach at Catholic. They've got deep roots there. But one of the big things, Barry Remo, who was their lead running back most of the year, he's missed a good part of last year injured, and he's back and he's ready. And then, but they're kind of the flip side of Zachary. They're going to be greener up front. They lost the Big Johnson twins, and they've got a couple of starters back, but they're going to have to work some new people in. Defense, it seems like they always find people and always run people at you, and they're no different in that regard. So it'll be interesting to see that competition. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Scotlandville also, because, they graduated in the last couple of years. They graduated Zay this year. They graduated the running backs before. Jamal Franklin, the lineman's now at McNeese. So it's going to be interesting to see what they look like. I saw them in 7-on-7, and they were using a couple of young quarterbacks. And, of course, bless their heart, they're all about 15 years old, and none of them look like Zay did. Or, you got a guy who was 6'3", 210. So it's probably going to be a different year for them, but it'll be interesting to see how they do. Central is where David Semino, the former Catholic coach, is. They're kind of starting over with new systems, offense and defense, a few guys back. Now, Glenn Cage, their star running back, graduated. He signed with Arkansas, Monticello. So they're breaking in some new people in the backfield. Solid young quarterback, Jackson Furman. So, it'll be interesting to see how they do in a first-year setting with new coaches, and they've done a lot of different things. And a lot of people are actually looking at the other district, believe it or not, the 5-5A district.
Yeah, the 5-5A district with Denham Springs, Walker, and Dutchtown. What can you say about that? Well,
don't forget East Ascension. That's the one we're hearing a lot about.
Right, East Ascension, coached by Darnell Lee. Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I mean, Darnell Lee, this is one I came up with. I actually went and wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I had the kid's name right. They're always big up front, and they're always big defensively, which is kind of a hallmark of Darnell teams. Darnell was a defensive player. He's very much a defensive coach. But they have a young man who they're listing as an athlete, and on their roster, he's number 89. He's a junior. He is 6'9", and he weighs 285 pounds. His name is LeBron Napoleon. So, and he's gotten a couple of small college offers, because that size is just so intriguing. But I think the idea is they could play him either in the line or they could use him as a tight end. But they're going to be, the line's going to be great. The line's going to be great. They're going to be breaking in a lot of new skill players. So that's going to be interesting to see how that meshes for them. Denham Springs is getting a lot of notice too. Obviously, they made a deep playoff run, lost to Ruston, in the quarters, and that was the longest, deepest playoff run they'd made in decades.
Yeah.
And of course, they have Deshaun McBride, who's committed to LSU, and kind of came out of nowhere last year. He had played a little bit of varsity as a sophomore, and then just kind of figured it all out. And he's like the 6'4", 200-pound package committed to LSU. And they had a lot of guys who graduated. Reese Mooney, the quarterback, but he went to Liberty. He signed with Liberty. But the young man he split time with through injuries and other issues was Jerry Horn. He's back. So, a lot of people are looking to say, they did well last year. Let's see if they can bring it on this year. Dutchtown has 9 starters back on offense, which is usually a pretty good sign for them. Guy Mastretta teams are always very well coached. It's going to be interesting. Santa Maria is going to be a little bit of a dark horse. I don't think as many people are looking at them, but, in that district, especially where they're rivals, you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And Walker, too, is working in some new people, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Live Oak, first-year coach Hutch Gonzalez, who previously was head coach at Mandeville. I was actually over at their practice Monday. A lot of excitement there, but it's kind of a don't want to say fixer-upper, but it's a new situation for all of them. I mean, he's worked with them. He's been there. He's been in place for a while, but you got some guys that are learning new positions. You've got some other guys who are probably having to do some different things in a different system because he has some specifics that he wants to do offensively. He's a great offensive coach. So we're going to see what happens.
VK.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, VK. Are you on mute?
I got it.
There we go.
Have my daughter right there. Always, she's home with me now, so
Sure.
how it
good.
is.
Good.
But
good.
It's good to have you on. A lot of respect, a lot of admiration for you. I always look up to you, and you're right, and you always do a great job. And congratulations on that award for Sports Writer of the Year.
Oh well, thank you.
Definitely.
Now I gotta ask you this. We talked about Traders, and also you talked about Napoleon. It kind of made me think about Danny Lewis a couple of years ago for Westgate.
Sure.
It's amazing when you got. It was something else when me and Jared witnessed Danny Lewis and how he played. Now we're like, oh my goodness, we got two more of these guys because I remember seeing Traders in basketball.
And I don't know anything about Napoleon. It's going to be interesting. I mean, this is just kind of really, really new. I don't know about anything from him for basketball. Now, Tradez was a very well-known commodity in basketball before he ever stepped on a football field. Most people don't realize he's only played football 2 years. And, when he stepped on the field as a sophomore at East Feliciana, he hadn't played football since he was 5 years old. He played one game as a little kid, hated it. His mother told him he didn't have to play again. but then when all of his buddies were playing football, he decided to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. I guess
so. And he's got they've turned in all of his work, all of his paperwork, transfer related stuff. The LHSA is just now getting into all of that stuff. As I think the deadline to submit was July 31st, and you're talking about the whole state. They're not just looking at one guy. So it's going to be interesting. I mean. Legit move. I mean, some people are talking about that, and they moved. So, and that's a big deal in that area because it's a reasonably close distance. I have people that have asked me about that before, and I said, well, you have some people who they can move, and some of them have a lot of money and can move, and others just find ways.
Absolutely. And looking at the. You talk about David Seminole going to Central and everything. And it was shocking last season when we found out that Seminole resigned from Catholic of Baton Rouge. What did you think that?
Well, he's from Central originally. Although he played at Parkview Baptist, he's from Central. He grew up in the Central area, and he was actually on Sid Edwards' staff at Central before he went to Catholic High Point Capee as a head coach.
Wow, that's
his offensive coordinator, who was with him at Catholic, he's a former Central player. So there are some ties, and then of course one of my other, I guess you'd call him favorites that he brought back. They have a college coach on their staff. Anthony Camp is their defensive coordinator. He and Seminole were teammates at Parkview Baptist. And he's spent, the last 7 or 8 years coaching at Nichols and at Louisiana Tech. And they talked about it, and he moved back home. And he's the defensive coordinator. And then, of course, Zach Morris, who I mentioned, is the offensive coordinator. He's from Central.
Interesting. And also that other district we talked about. Let me ask you about Denham Springs. Do you think, and I even said this to Jared when we talked about a couple of these teams, I said the way Denham Springs' schedule is and the experience they have back, they could have an outside shot of getting to the Dome. What are your thoughts on Denham Springs' chances to break through and get to a state championship?
Well, certainly, they've got options there. There are things they can do to be in that position. They got a taste of it this year. But by the same token, they also graduated some guys from key positions that will need to be replaced. I'm not saying they can't be. They need to replace other pieces in that backfield. And, I know Coach Beard is meticulous. He's going to have a plan, and you never know. They were one of those teams, it's kind of like last year, kind of, well, we don't know. And then, of course, nobody knew who McBride was. And then all of a sudden, he has 9 interceptions on the year and makes all these plays. I interviewed him the week he got his first major college offer to Texas Tech. Still then, nobody knew who he was. He was a kid that had played mostly basketball the year before. He played a little bit of varsity, but again, that's one of those things where sometimes it just clicks in for a kid. Like it did for Quincy Wiggins at Madison Prep a few years ago, who's at LSU.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I tell you, and I think the one thing that really stands out about Denham Springs, besides the experience, it's a very few times where a certain team has about 8 home games for the season. And for them, they got a lot of home games, and especially some big time opponents going into their house. And if they get those wins, that'll be unbelievable.
Well, it's huge, and you know the reason for that, right? They played most of last year without a stadium. Their stadium was being rebuilt. So I mean, it flipped definitely in their favor.
Wow.
But we got a lot of other teams that are good too now, not just in 5A.
Oh yeah, we're going right down. We're just getting started here. Let's go right down to Class 4A, and we got the district in 6-4A with Bel Air, Broadmoor, and Bruley, Estruma, McKinley, and Plaquemine, and also St. Michael. Can you tell us a little bit about the district? Because one of the teams,
the best team in the district last year was West Feliciana.
Right, it was one of the best teams.
Devin Ducote, who was the defensive coordinator under Semino at Catholic, and he also has ties with Hudson Fuller, who's the Catholic coach. He was an assistant at West Feliciana when Fuller started there, and then he went off. He did a college deal gig. He's another one who'd been a former Parkview guy who he'd been in the college ranks. He actually had been an analyst in 2 or 3 places, including at Auburn, and was looking to get back into college. And then they got him to come back. They got him to come back to high school, and he did the thing over there. And I kidded him the other day because he was kind of late filling out his questionnaire. I said, Coach, I knew you'd be a head coach someday. And he says, well, you knew more than I did. He says, I never really thought about that. But when Fuller goes to Catholic, that's a golden opportunity for him because he apparently was well loved when he was up there. He was only up there a year. He was the DC and laid the groundwork for last year when they made it to the semifinals. Now, Feliciana's always got talent. If you think about it, they won a title in 17. Always have a lot of athletic ability, and they've got an LSU commitment in quarterback Joel Rogers, who will be a defensive back. But they also are one of those teams that has size. They've got a bunch of other guys who are either close to committing or getting offers. And, we had a guy his name doesn't come to mind, and I can't call it up right now because I'm on the screen with you guys, but he was a defensive lineman. And they have a lot of size up front. See, last year was the first year in 4A for both West Feliciana and Bruley. And West Feliciana went and basically took on Plaquemine, and Plaquemine had been the big dog and beat him convincingly. And, of course, Plaquemine now has a new coach in Donald Williams Jr., so that's going to be another transition to look at because that's one of those things I kid people about all the time. I said everybody thinks that the school with the most college players is probably Catholic or Zachary. But over probably the last 10 years, if you put it out, the team with the most college players is probably Plaquemine.
Amazing. And it's something else with this transition here, especially what DeStefano done with that program and everything. And now a transition with a new head coach. It's going to be interesting.
Well, now he wasn't the head coach last year.
Because I know he was a coach for a long
That was Dre
time.
Trusclair, who's now at Thibodeau.
Okay.
And they had actually transitioned away from Paul the year before.
Okay.
They had an interim situation for the latter part of the year that year, and then brought in Dre, and then Donald Williams is a guy. Actually, he's a former Bruley player who has been an assistant there for a few years. Now, the key thing that he did is he brought back a guy named Hansani Holland, who people would say, who is he? Well, he was at Plaquemine, and then he was a head coach at Tara for a couple of years. And then last year, he was the offensive guru at Scotlandville. And, of course, you realize they almost beat Carr. And he got offered I guess what you'd call a quasi administrative position over there. He's not dean of students, but he's something else. So he got a promotion in another area, and he's going to be their offensive coordinator. And he's another one. He's a former Southern quarterback.
Interesting.
A lot of people think he's kind of like a quarterback whisperer. So and it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because they've been a lot of ground chuck in the past, not as much wanting to pass, because that was more of an old school thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this year. Both, like say, West Feliciana was very impressive, and made it to the semis, and then you had Plaquemine was okay, but they lost. They did well. They were playing for the district title at the end of the year, but they lost to Jennings in the first round of the playoffs. And Bruley under Hofschooler had done well in that first year in 4A. He's got a decent number of kids back. And then, of course, the one that's going to be interesting for everybody to watch, because everybody watches what he does, Sid Edwards lands at Estrema.
And I was about to ask you the next question about that. And very respectable coach, Sid Edwards. Unbelievable what he has done over the years in the Baton Rouge area, and especially with now in his third program, and trying to really get them going. What are your thoughts on Estrema? Because it seemed like they've been making progress over the years since they have returned.
Well, they had made some progress. They had Le'Veon Moss. They had a really, really good team a couple of years ago. But the problem, that was a school that they had reopened, and they had put certain magnet programs in, and some of the mission there and everything is turned around. Initially, the kids that were there had been split between a couple of other schools, and they pulled them back over to that zone. And basically, over the last couple of years, their numbers had actually dwindled, even in Moss's last year, and that's why injuries and things like that hurt them. And when Sid first got there, they had the band play. The members of the band played in the library, which I thought was pretty cool. He sent me a video of it, but they didn't have a lot of kids out at first, but now he's getting more kids out. It's been a gradual work in progress. They're having to order a lot of equipment, because you're saying, oh, but they had equipment from when they restarted the program. Well, wait a minute. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. You got to replace things, because they played 2 years of JV before they played varsity. And so you had to do all of that. And, it's a different mindset. He's got some guys over there that he's coached with, Storm Reeves, who he was with at Central, Larry Bland, who's coaching several places, including, I think most recently he was at U High. The assistant principal actually is Eric Randall. He had moved over from Baker, and he had been coming out to help him. So the numbers are up, and it's an interesting situation, because that's Sid's area, the 70805, but that's a different dynamic. It's been, I don't know, well, it's been a long time since Redemptor's closed, and he was not the coach there for several years before that. So it's a different situation, and they've learned the kids, they've got their trust. But the funny thing, I guess, that shows you that they are on the upswing, and a lot of people are pulling for them, because people pull for Sid and his teams. the Jimmy Williams Memorial 7-on-7 tournament that they had. They were trying to pull in teams at the last minute because several dropped out. So they called Sid, can y'all come? This is like literally at 9:00 on Thursday night, and the thing starts Friday morning. He's not even sure. They don't usually get that many kids to a Friday workout. He's not even sure they're going to be able to pull it off, let alone get a bus. Well, not only do they get a lot more kids than he expected, just about everybody showed up. They finished second to Woodlawn, a team that, and Woodlawn beat them. I mean, Woodlawn's got some weapons too, but it was kind of cool to see that and to see them kind of experience that, because they had some, as he said, admittedly early in the summer, some 7-on-7s that hadn't gone well. And it's all about learning how to handle adversity. Don't get mad. Just go on ahead and play the next play. And they did a good job of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. It really will be.
Yeah, and Sid, I forgot. This is his fourth program. He had a stint at Jesuit for a little bit, right?
Well, he had 1 year at Jesuit and 1 year at Menard in Alexandria. So he doesn't really call those stints, because he was only there 1 year in each place.
Absolutely. He's a class guy.
Now, he's also probably next to go into the 200 wins list, and it probably won't be here. He's our active winningest coach with 188 wins.
Wow. JB, go ahead with the question.
I'm going to go ahead and pass it to George Peppers. Go ahead, George Peppers.
What's that?
First off, thank you for joining us tonight, and it's a pleasure to have you on. You're one of the best reporters in the state. I look forward to reading your columns every week. You do a fabulous job, and congratulations on your honor winning Sports Writer of the Year. Personally, I think you're a great writer, and I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to kind of start a little bit where a team that should have won the state title last year, but it got away from them late. Dunham, against St. Charles. They had that game for a good bit of that game until the late part of the fourth quarter, and the Comets, found some stops. Sure. Where is Dunham in your estimation this year? I would imagine chip on the shoulder probably, and Neil Weiner's got those boys ready to go.
It's going to be a really different dynamic this year.
Okay.
Because you realize, coaches, you guys know this, coaches always say the key to success in titles is linemen.
Yes.
And that was the basis of that team. Now, I actually called up their questionnaire again before I came on with you guys to make sure I, had my P's and Q's straight. They didn't graduate the farm, but they don't have everybody back. Plus, now they have the wide receiver, Jack Como, and that's JAC, who's a dynamic player. And he's coming back. They have some other guys that they need to replace. They have a young quarterback. If you were at the state basketball tournament where Dunham played Newman in the semifinals, you saw him score in double figures. His name is Elijah Haven. He's a ninth grader. And he is 6'4", 195. When they played East Feliciana, I covered him early in the year, and Jackson House, the son of LSU's defensive coordinator, that's the big loss. Elijah Haven's a very different kind of player from Jackson House. He's just a smooth athlete, and he's going to be a young first-year quarterback. But in that night against East Feliciana, he came in for 2 plays, and on one of them he threw a touchdown pass. So he's got a chance, but it's going to be kind of a different dynamic. That's the thing that surprised a lot of people. A lot of people didn't think they would beat U High. They played U High in the semifinals after U High beat Newman.
Yeah.
And that's where the experience in the line for Dunham had more experience especially with Jake Rizzo, the defensive lineman, and some of the other people that it just made a difference. And but it's going to be interesting to see where they are. They're definitely the favorite in their district. And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes down the line, to see if, you parlay this into something else. And, it's funny because they had some other games during the year that people are questioning why they lost. Well, the one against Parkview, they lost the first week of the season. most of their kids were out sick, and that was when we were still worried about COVID. They had like 15 guys out. And that was one of those things for small schools. Their volleyball team had to cancel its tournament that weekend, the tournament they were in, and the football team was playing a lot of JV guys. So, but they bounced back after some other things. But it's going to be different. It's going to be a different look with Haven. I'm excited to see what they do, but I'm curious to see. They're going to have some key spots to fill in that line.
No doubt about it. Another team that has been a traditional power for many years out of the Baton Rouge area. It feels like they're going to be a second wheel in their district. And that's Southern Lab Kittens, because they do have Kentwood to deal with. Where do you feel like the Kittens?
That's a really, really fierce rivalry.
It is,
and
but
they wouldn't want to say they're second.
Well, no, I mean, I've read a lot of the blogosphere have said things differently.
Them last year, and I love both of those coaches. They're two of my favorites. But
truly.
It's going to be interesting because I think that loss and not getting further in the playoffs, I think both of those teams are going to come in with a lot of talent and a chip on their shoulder. And if you want to watch a good game, it's probably going to be this year. Go under the tank and watch that one, because Southern Lab had a young quarterback last year, not young in age. He was a junior, but he was a first-year starter. He was still figuring it out. They have Dylan Day, who's committed to Miami as a defensive back. They've got Jude Foster, a defensive offensive lineman who's committed to Ole Miss. And Coach Asbury's son is a big running back. They run a lot of kids in and out of there. And sometimes it's about learning how to win some of those games. You think about before that, they had won a state title. And all of those guys, some of those guys were starters, but not many of them. So they were trying to learn how to win last year. And this year, I sent somebody out there to talk to a couple of those guys today. They're going to come back with a chip on their shoulder, and I think Kentwood's going to do the same thing, because maybe the Superdome was the destination both of them want to be in, and they will both tell you, hey, our district, we want to hold up 2 trophies at the end of the year.
No doubt about it. And look, it wasn't really my opinion. It's just, I do a lot of reading and other people and that cover those areas and whatnot. And I feel like it's a close race with those two, with Kentwood and Southern Lab.
Yeah. I think people probably gave Southern Lab a little edge last year, and I didn't understand that because, again, it was somewhat of a younger group, especially with a first-year starter at quarterback. And Asbury's a former quarterback, so he's very meticulous about those things and very, very disciplined. And there's some things that they did well, but I think he also came away thinking there were things that they could do better. And neither team was flawless that night, but Kentwood made some of the plays that they needed to make at just the right time, and sometimes that's what it takes.
No doubt. Another team I'm kind of curious to get your opinion on is St. Michael of the Archangel, a team that seems like just when you feel like they can break through, they don't, and they're kind of a cyclical team. They'll hit a peak and really not progress forward. Where do you feel like that St. Michael can be this year?
Coach Leger does a really good. He does a really, really good job there, and they've had cycles, like you said, cycles of players who have come in and out. He's got a nice group back this year. That's going to actually be a more competitive district in 6 because they're part of that 6-4A mix. That's going to be interesting. It's one of the things with them that I think frustrates them, and it frustrates those of us who follow them, is sometimes they'll have a game, say early in the year, where you think, they win this one and they'll get on a roll, and then somehow they'll lose it, and then it'll take them another couple of weeks to find their way, whether it was because of COVID or whether it was because of something else. And I would like to see what would happen if they got a winning streak going, and just kind of see what happens if they got that opportunity to fire on all cylinders against a quality opponent.
I agree with the assessment. I mean, Leger is a good coach, and he's going to do good things there, and they continue to tease. But another team I'm curious to get your opinion on is University High. Another team that tradition is tradition. They win a lot. They've won a lot. Where do you feel the Cubs can be in relevancy to potentially making a run this year?
Oh, I think a lot of people are already penciling them in, and for a lot of reasons. They have a new quarterback in the
Right.
mix from Mississippi, and he came in with 11 college offers, 3 from SEC schools. And he's in a bit of a quarterback battle right now with a guy who was left there.
Mhm.
So you've got Keelan Moses, who's Dylan Moses' younger brother, who's a two-way threat. He's not just a defensive guy; he's a two-way threat, and he's now a bigger kid too. He's like 6'2", 6'3", and not quite as big as his brother was, but he's one of those kids that smiles the whole time he plays, and you interview him, and you can tell he enjoys the game. He wants to do whatever they tell him to do. You want me to go, run for a touchdown? I'll do that. You want me to hit the guy there, maybe get an interception? I'll do that. He's one of those guys, and those are the guys that are really of value on, especially when you get to the lower classes. But they've got a lot of other guys coming up. The big thing for them, the thing that probably hurt them against Dunham, I didn't cover the game. Again, I talked about the Dunham line before. The Dunham line was huge and experienced. The U-High line, they had replaced a lot of guys. And that's one thing that I'm hearing is, wow, those guys have figured it out this year. They're not only big, they're really good. And then, of course, he's got Seth Gale, Granville Anderson, whoever plays quarterback, if it's Emil Pecorello or Garrett Graves, they've got a bunch of options of who to throw to.
Okay. Last year, for the first time in a while, Baton Rouge really didn't rule the roost in the Superdome with the 8 games that we had. The River Parishes won 3 state titles.
Sure.
But before that, Baton Rouge went on a nice little streak of winning multiple state titles. I know things are in cycles that we talk about a lot.
Sure.
When you look at this season, as we come into this upcoming season, and just a few weeks from now, my goodness, I can't wait. Where's Baton? What do you think there are? I mean, obviously we've named a few teams, but can the Baton Rouge area be that area again that they were for a couple of years this year?
We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of changes that have gone down in the coaching world.
Right.
We're also waiting to see what happens with this lawsuit where some people want to get a restraining order, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. Because I even asked the attorney what would happen if you got it. Would you go back to the old system? What would you do? That would change things immensely. Last year, one of the changes you have to understand is that the balance changed because the schools were so balanced on both sides, it mixed it up. And then where divisions and classes get confusing is, I'll give you a good example. U-High played in Division III, which is 2A.
Right.
And they played Dunham, and there were people who were screaming bloody murder. There's no way Dunham should be playing U-High, And my answer to that is that school doesn't have as many high school students as you think they do. But look on the flip side, and you had Madison Prep, who beat U-High for the district title when a lot of people didn't expect it, and they played up. They were Division II.
So last question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and of course, Madison Prep had won a 3A title before that.
Yes, they did. My last question before I turn it over to our esteemed host, Jared. We talked. You mentioned a young program, and I think they're in. I'm almost positive they're in Baton Rouge, Liberty.
Liberty is a young.
What about them?
This is year
3, I think.
4.
4. Okay.
I'm counting the JV years.
Oh, okay. I wasn't really counting. Honestly, I wasn't counting it. But anyway,
this is their second year in 5A.
Okay.
And then I take that back. This is their 4th varsity season. They played 1 varsity season in 4A, and then they played. This will be their 4th or.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
This will be their 3rd varsity season.
Okay. Where do you see them this year? I know they, it feels like they're getting their feet wet and getting the land down as far as,
Yeah,
how to get to the competitive
it's
spot.
hard to tell. It's hard to tell with them because, of course, we kept waiting for Caleb Jackson to play last year. He got hurt in the season opener against Southern
Right.
Lab, and they graduated a significant number of players. They've got a young coach, Corey Lindsay, who played at Southern Illinois. He played at Scotland. He played at Scotlandville in high school, and then his father is actually Keith Woods, who's coached everywhere, and he's back at Dad's back at Capital now. They get a lot of kids now because of the magnet programs they have. They're kind of doing a little bit of their own reboot into it because I thought they needed another year in 4A. If they had stayed in 4A for 2 more years, I just think it's a huge jump between 4A and 5A competition, and it's hard to build when you're actually in 5A. So plus you got to realize they are a full magnet, but they compete with all these other schools. They're stone's throw. They have a partnership with LSU for a lot of their classes. They have an engineering program there where they have people that they hire through LSU, and they do a lot of other innovative things. But they're going to have probably a few years of just settling in. They also had Dre Trosclair as the coach initially. He was their first head coach for the first 3 years. And it's probably going to take a little bit of time from them. I actually got Corey's questionnaire today. I've not been able to look at it, but they're replacing some key people in a lot of places. They had some other kids who were pretty good last year. That a couple of guys that I think there was one who's going to be playing at Southeastern. They lost some seniors, so it's going to be kind of a reboot for them.
So it's Robin Fambrough. You spoke of Barry Remo, the running back for Baton Rouge Catholic. And on some publications, he's ranked as one of the best running backs in the state. What makes him so special?
Well, he's just one of those little fast guys who he's fast. He's got good moves. He can run inside. He's just steady. And they didn't really have, when he got hurt, they didn't really have anybody who could give him quite that zip. They had some other guys who were good, and certainly, they had several. There was the guy who came in, I think the night he got hurt, had 100 yards in the game that we covered. But he's just he's a pretty good back catching the ball out of the backfield, which gives Beal another target. And I like watching him run. People would say, well, is he, who's he like? And Warrick Dunn. Well, I don't know about that, because Warrick Dunn was probably what you'd call a generational talent. I'll say that now. But he's out of that kind of mold. He's your smaller, shifty guy, and he's just fun to watch. And I hope he doesn't get injured this year, because I think he can have a big year, and I hope somebody takes a really hard look at him and takes a chance on him. He gets a chance to go to the next level where he can succeed.
Most definitely. What are your thoughts about Parkview Baptist?
That's going to be interesting. That's another one that's for years under the late coach Kenny Guillot, they were very ground oriented, also very line oriented, and ran a double slot option. And whereas Stephen LaForce, who was a star at Christian Life, played on teams with Michael Clayton, he's a passing guy. He played quarterback at the University of Louisville, and he returned home to coach at Parkview. And it's, his quarterback, Abram Johnston, is kind of one of the more interesting stories. I did it last year. Their family, God bless them, has no athletic talent, and I say that facetiously. He is the grandson of Dr. Steve Ripple, who played at LSU. He was a linebacker. Abram's mother was an All-American swimmer at Stanford. His grandmother was a world-class triathlete. His two cousins, female cousins, who were runners at Episcopal, are two of the best cross-country runners in the state. So, yeah, they have no skill in the family. But what he's done, he never really played quarterback until he moved to Parkview. And that was one of the things that they didn't do, even though his grandfather played football. He played soccer and did other things when he was younger. So he's a bright kid. He's also all district and all metro in soccer, which is no surprise. That was another one of his sports. But they've done some things to kind of get him open. And the thing that Stefan did is he had a choice to make a couple of years ago, and he opted to go with the younger kid who was somebody he could mold. So this is going to be his senior year, and it's going to be a chance for them to do something. It looks like they've got some nice talent around him, some receivers and some other people, and it'll be it's that district is again, it's interesting because you got Madison Prep, you got U High, you got Parkview.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Before I pass it back to VK, staying with Parkview Baptist, Caden Turo, running back for Parkview Baptist,
Yes,
he's getting a lot of looks.
He is.
What can you say about him?
I didn't get a chance to see them play much last year, so it's really hard for me to make an opinion. But to state an opinion, I don't want to do that on somebody that I haven't had a chance to actually put a lot of eyes on or
Understandable.
talk to people about. But I mean, he's playing in a system that will give him a chance to make a lot of plays if everything goes. Because if the pass isn't an option, then they could do some things with him running the ball. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there.
Absolutely. Gotta ask you these questions right quick. We can't let you leave without talk about these teams here. First of all, two teams that really has been coming up with their programs. One is Baton Rouge Episcopal, who's been making progress over the years and everything. The other program is Slaughter Charter.
Okay.
Slaughter has been really making some progress, making some tracks around. Tell us how you see both those two teams.
Well, it's funny you say that about Slaughter. They did get hit heavily by graduation, and Coach Clarkston out there, Patrick Clarkston, is going to work those guys. He told me, he says we've got some babies we're having to teach. So, but the good situation for them is they're in 1A and in a situation where they can make some things happen. Now, Episcopal actually is good every year. Now I think the fool's gold part of it is sometimes they're good and then you lose in the playoffs and you're not that good. Last year, and I'm good friends with all of these coaches. I covered them on Thursday night against Dunham, and they were unbeaten, and they got shut out 48-0. So they had some new starters in there, some different guys. He's got some guys who are pretty reliable. I don't have the questionnaire in front of me for a couple of guys that they rely a lot on guys who play on both sides of the ball, and more so than maybe a lot of these other schools. And they're, because of Coach Bourgeois, Travis Bourgeois is very ground oriented. They don't like to pass the ball that much. This is going to be interesting to see where they go this year, because they were kind of retooling in a couple of places last year in several sports. Now they were excellent in soccer. They've got some guys off of that team who also play football. They're state runner-up and state champion. And it's going to be interesting just to see how they do. I mean, they're going to be considered behind Dunham probably, unless they beat them. And of course, those teams have a history. The one last year was probably the only game, maybe one game out of the last 10 that hasn't been good. So, and that game may be part of the motivation for them.
What about Madison Prep, the Chargers? Last year they was pretty young, but they got hot at the right time. at the end of the season, and I mean a
Well,
scary ball club last season.
they play a brutal schedule. It was not by accident. Now, everybody thought the young quarterback Tylen, because Tylen Johnson is as Landry Williams noted, the coach, he's not Zeon Chris. Zeon Chris was 6'3", I don't know, 210, and he ran a 40, and he's at UL now. You know, Tylen's about 5'10", 180, different kind of quarterback, different kind of guy, but just one of those guys that goes out there and makes plays. And the interesting thing for them is going to be who he throws to and who some of the other people are. They've got some running backs back that are good. They did graduate one, but they have they had two really good receivers last year. One of them, David Jones, is going to start for Grambling this year, probably as a safety. He was the one that had all kinds of people looking at him, didn't get the upper mobility that you think he would, and he signed with Grambling, and he's a steal. They had another kid, Samaj Pierre, who's in Texas now, and he is just over the border in Louisiana, from Louisiana over closer to Houston. And I've seen some stuff on him. He is absolutely blown up this summer. It's like, who is this guy? He's from Louisiana. So they're kind of having to start over with some of the other skill positions. But, he had a trial by fire last year, and they passed as far as I'm concerned. They didn't win a state title, but with everything that they had lost the year before and some of the other stuff, they've got a nice size line. They've got some younger guys who got some experience last year. There's one when I did look at their questionnaire the other day, kind of made me chuckle a little bit, because one of their starting linemen is a young man named Robrick, Robric Walker. And that wouldn't mean anything to you, but it does to me, because his grandmother is Janice Walker Charles, who coached the Glen Oaks girls basketball team into prominence. And his father, who played at Estruma and was a wrestler at Estruma, Robert Walker, was a defensive lineman at Southern during the glory years under Pete Richardson. So, you have a lot of guys like that. There was a guy at Estruma many years ago, Calvin Spears. His son is one of their players, plays DB. He's actually the kicker who made the field goal to beat U High. And the thing I'm interested to see also with Landry this year, though, is he lost some pretty key assistant coaches. Ross Apkin, who did a lot of the offensive stuff, is now the coach at J.S. Clark and Opelousas. And then Anthony Jones did a lot of different things for him also. And he was there, I think, dating back to the time when Coach Roach was there. A lot of these guys have Glen Oaks roots. Coach Jones is the new head coach at Glen Oaks. So he's had to replace some people on staff. And you got to realize Ryan Cook, who's at Scotlandville, was his DC when they won the state title. So he's had to retool coaches and players. But they're going to be fun to watch. They're always good, and he finds ways to get them ready.
All right.
Any of that make sense?
Yes,
a lot of it made sense. I think Madison Prep might be a factor this season.
Well, they were a factor last year. I'm telling you, it's a difference when you're looking at classes and you're looking at divisions.
Correct.
And it's still one of the games that probably stuns people the most with Madison Prep when they won that title in 2020. But when I saw the way that game unfolded, I understood perfectly, because, that was Quincy's first year to play football, and they just couldn't get around them. And it's funny because they got ripped a little bit because they had the lightning delays and everything, and they were a little upset that I think Madison Prep went for another touchdown at the end of the half. And I got it because you knew who the running back was on the other side. And what if it started raining? Because it sure looked like it would. What if they start going ground chuck and we wind up with a 35-28 game in the fourth quarter? Because it can happen. We've seen it happen. But, they find ways to win. And Funny story about Quincy. That week, I went over to interview him. You know, like I told you, that was like his first year playing football. He'd been a basketball player before. Go over to practice at Southern. He's not there. He comes up a few minutes later. He had drove on his own and didn't have his helmet. So he wound up watching, and they were not happy. I'll put it to you that way. They were not happy. And, you know, I'll be damned if a few days later he doesn't play the game of his life or one of the games of his life. So, and sometimes we forget their kids, but I think he had picked up everything else when he went over to pick up his stuff. And, you know, I think initially was going to ride the bus, but wound up either coming on his own or having somebody bring him. And the one thing he didn't have was his helmet. So.
Most definitely. Miss Robin Fambrough, on behalf of VK, George Peppers, and myself, we want to thank you for joining us and giving us all the details about the Baton Rouge High School football team. Thank you so much.
Hey, cool. One last thing.
Yes, ma'am.
If y'all want a picture of me again, I can provide you one.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't take great pictures, but I do have a couple.
I got you.
Well, take care. You guys have a great year.
Thank you, man.
You too. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Oh, the great Robin Fambrough. Yeah, that's, you know, the graphics I make. That's the picture I put in. Apparently she didn't like it, but that's okay. She was a good sport about it. Good sport.
Yes.
All right, guys, let's do this quickly. Let's talk about the district with Zachary, Woodlawn, Scotlandville, Central, Liberty, and Catholic. George Peppers, I ask you first, who's winning that district?
Ooh, that's wide open. I feel like a couple of those teams have big reasons to win this district. That have the most credentials to do so. Who? I mean, I could go Baton Rouge Catholic, and I could go Zachary. That's where I feel like it's in between one of those two teams. And look, the thing that's going to tip me to the Bears is this. Remember whose name got put into the hat for West Monroe after last season when Arledge left? David Brewerton's name. He kicked the tires. He didn't go because they went with the alumnus. All right, but Brewerton, I'm not saying he's not happy at Zachary. I mean, he's had a modium of success there. He's done a wonderful job there. But I feel like Catholic might be the goods. They're both going to be very good. I'm going to tip this to the Bears, VK, but this is a razor thin edge that I'm giving Baton Rouge Catholic. It's going to be close.
VK.
I think it's going to be very close myself and everything, but I'm going to give the edge to Zachary because of coaching experience, because of the fact Catholic has a first-year head coach coming in. Catholic will be very, very talented because they have a lot of people back, including Barry Remo. They're going to be a very good team, but I'm going to go with Zachary and that head coach, and I trust him because he's done an unbelievable job. Don't be surprised that Baton Rouge Central might make a little move this year. Not gonna say they might make postseason, but I think they're gonna spoil some people in that district. David Seminole, I think, is gonna do a job over there. I give them a couple years that they're gonna really rise.
Baton Rouge Central not making that much of a move this year. They might win a district game, but I don't see Baton Rouge Central winning no more than 2 or 3 district games this year.
The reason why I say that, think about it. David Seminole came to Central. No, David Seminole came to Catholic and won the state championship his first year.
Okay, that's nice.
No.
That's nice.
No. I don't care if it's nice. I don't care if it's nice.
Oh, you go.
No. Hold on. You know why I say I don't care? Now listen, there's a reason why I say I don't care it's nice. Because plain and simple.
But I do care.
Listen, I'm saying that for a reason. Not too many coaches win a title in his first year. Not too many. Just saying.
Right.
Just saying. I respect your opinion that Central might not win that much. I'm saying it could. because of the job he done in 2 years. Just saying.
George Peppers, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is no disrespect to David Semino,
Right.
but didn't he have a loaded team his first year? A lot of players that came back, including Sheldon Sampson.
Are you talking about the Catholic team that ransacked the state title?
Yeah, that one
That
state, yeah.
team? Yeah. I mean, look, this has nothing to do with his credentials, BK. I don't think he's got the thoroughbreds and the horses to be in the same
Exactly.
discussion as
Yes.
Catholic and Zachary. It's nothing against Semino.
Nothing.
All right. It's nothing against Coach Semino at all. And I'd be an idiot to say, "Oh, he's he's not that good a coach." The man's already told you he can win. But when you get to Central, what did Sid leave? And I'm not saying the cupboard's bare, but when you compare Central to those two teams, it really is like a distant comparison. It feels in distance, no, but in talent, absolutely. I think Zachary or Catholic has to be the two teams you got to knock off. And I don't think look in time, Jared Semino's going to win.
Yes,
That's
I
just
agree.
in his DNA.
I
But
agree.
I don't see this year being that year. I think he's got a couple of years to shake things up a little bit.
I'm not
Maybe with the
saying
reclass after this year, because guess what? We're going to reclass again, and things can be a whole lot different come January. But this year, I'm on Jared's side. I don't see Central. I'm not saying they're going to be terrible. I just don't think they're going to be in the level of Zachary or Catholic. That's just my
all,
opinion.
I on the level
all I'm gonna tell
Woodlawn
you,
and Scotlandville also. I just not this year.
probably not this year. All I'm gonna tell you is this. This might reminisce of what Sid Edwards did when he got to Central. That's all I'm gonna tell you. It's all I'm gonna tell you. Just saying. I'm not saying I respect that. I'm not saying they're gonna win I'm saying they're just gonna be. If they don't make postseason fine, I'm saying they're gonna be spoilers. They're going to spoil some seasons. I'm just saying it's gonna be a challenge for Seminole. But once they get everything down and settled, and especially if they buy in, they're gonna win some games. I'm not gonna say they're gonna win a lot, but they're gonna spoil some seasons this year.
Well, I'll say this. Maybe down the line they'll spoil some seasons. This season, I don't think they're gonna spoil a season at all. But maybe a couple years, maybe so. But I look at it, new coach at Baton Rouge Cali. Barry Remo is back. Zachary got a brand new quarterback, a couple brand new players. But you have that man in David Brewerton. And a great team last year lost to a great team in Catholic. This is tough, man, between these two. It's tough, but I'm going to go David Brewerton and the Zachary Broncos due to the experience of the head coach to win that district. Now, as we go to the district that's next door, and we are talking about the district with Denham Springs, East Ascension, Walker, and Dutchtown. We had a three-way tie for the district championship last year. Who wins it this year? I think this year there won't be a three-way tie. I think we will have an outright winner. And I think it's going to be between two teams. I think it's between Denham Springs and East Ascension. And East Ascension, in my opinion, will be a better team than last year. We know Darnell Lee loves to run the ball. He loves to run the ball. It'll be 3rd and 10. He's going to run the ball more than likely. But Denham Springs, man, they opened up some eyes last year. They came up on people. They're not going to come up on people this season. But we talked about it, and I'm going to stick with it. I think Coach Brad Beard and his crew will still win the district, but this year outright. George Peppers.
This is another very tough district to forecast, but I'm going to throw this out there at you both. Denham Springs, you just astutely pointed out, Jared, that they snuck up on people last year. Are they going to be a victim of higher expectations? Yes, there is talent. Yes, Brett Beard can win. He's done it at Live Oak. He's done it at other stops. Brett's a very good coach. But the heightened expectations could be a situation where Denham maybe doesn't match what they did last year. Look, a lot of the buzz around East Ascension is legit. That team is going to be very, very good. Darnell Lee, as you mentioned, the dude ain't afraid to run in the pill. That run the rock, they define run the rock. And a key in a race like that, which team can shorten the game and maximize its possessions? I don't think it's Denham Springs. I do think it's again another razor thin race, PK. But I'm going to go the way of the Spartans here. I think East Ascension's going to knock off some people, and who knows? Maybe that's a team that, if the bracket draws right, they have a Denham Springs run, maybe better. We'll see.
Man, I got to tell you, I like what East Ascension has. They got a lot of talent coming back, but I said it weeks ago, and I'm gonna still stick to it. Denham Springs has an outside shot to get to the dome, and I think they win the district. And here's the thing: yeah, you got to follow up, and I get it. Sometimes you don't want your success, but here's the thing that kind of helps Denham. Denham Springs returning multiple starters that has experience, and that means a lot. Plus,
It
you have
does.
8 home games. 8. This run's gonna run well for
In a
Denham Springs
brand new stadium.
in a brand new stadium. 8. So guess what? I know they're gonna have some tough ones. If they get those wins against St. Thomas More, and I believe they got Mandeville coming through, and I think
I'm gonna get it for you right quick.
Christian.
I'm gonna get
Yeah,
it for
get
you
that
right
right quick. I'm
I'm gonna get it for
like this. If they get those wins in that non-district and win their district, don't be surprised. Denham Springs is gonna have a top 4 seed.
I don't
Do
think there's any
not be
question, P.
surprised.
I don't think there's any question. You're
Right.
right. If they do win this district, if Dennis Springs goes, in your eyes, let's say 9-1, takes the title, something like that. If they're not a top 4 seed, then the PowerPoint system is flawed, and it's not. The PowerPoint system is extremely accurate. It is the best thing that has happened to Louisiana football. It punishes you for playing bad teams, and it rewards you for playing good teams. Love the system. And if the Jackets, you mentioned the 8 home games. I want to know, Jared, is East Ascension one of
I
them, or
got.
do they got
I
to
see
go to East
7.
Ascension?
I see 7 home games
7
on
home
the
games
schedule.
next season.
I
7.
see
Okay,
7.
regardless. But
Yeah,
is East Ascension one of the 7, or do they got to go to them?
East Ascension is going to Denham Springs.
Coin flip. Gentlemen, that's a coin flip. I've said it from jump. But just the buzz I hear about the Spartans is, and I know you guys have heard the same buzz, it's legit. It's
Yeah,
legit.
Yes.
But the Jackets, they are that team. They could be that team. The thing that I mentioned the heightened expectations, Jared. Are the Jackets better defensively than last year? Because they got caught up in some shootouts, and they stole the game at Benton. They didn't win the game; they stole that game. It got them
well,
to the quarterfinals against Ruston,
Benton
and
head
Ruston
coach
was a
still
team on a
here.
mission last year. You know, I mean, if not for a coach that Reynolds Moore making the most boneheaded call in the history of prep football, that's right. We're not talking about I don't think we're talking about the Jackets being that team this year, because that's a team that's out in the second round. Instead of, well, they played Thanksgiving week against Ruston and got their brains beat in. Ruston put it on them. Um, I'm not sure we're talking about Dennis Springs in the same breath as East Ascension if Benton knocks them out in that second round game last year.
But here's another thing about East Ascension. You gotta understand. You talk about expectations for Denham. Here's the thing about East Ascension. They gotta get over the hump. They have
Which hump?
not been in a quarterfinal in a long time at East Ascension.
True.
They have always lost in the second round. The furthest that program has ever been was the state quarterfinals. They have never been past. So that is a big time hump that they got to get over. And we didn't see East Ascension teams in the past that were really good and
Hmm.
2 times losing to your alma mater.
They did.
So
Look, East Ascension in my eyes last year had one of the toughest schedules
They
in
did.
the state,
they did.
and pretty much It's the same schedule. So I'm gonna do East Ascension first, and I'm gonna go back and do Dental Springs, and then we're gonna end the show. Mm-hmm. I just need a yes or no. East Ascension schedule at home versus Zachary. Do they win?
No.
No.
All right.
Close game, but no.
Second week at home against West Monroe. They went to West Monroe last year and won. Do they win?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely yes.
Yes.
They come to Destrehan. I say no.
No. Should be interesting, but no. It's gonna be a good test for Destrehan. It's gonna be a really good test for them.
And Destrehan's got to plug and play because they did lose a decent bit, but no, I think Destrehan wins a close game.
Senior night, they host Alexandria. We heard from
Lamar Gafford
about Alexandria, but I'm going to say they defeat Alexandria.
Agree. I got East Ascension winning that game too.
All right, they lost to this team last year. De La Salle. What happens this year?
They beat them.
They beat De La Salle, East Ascension.
Oh man, that's gonna be a tough one. I think De La Salle might get them in a close game. That's gonna be a good one.
I'm going De La Salle in a 3-point winner. 3-point winner.
Me too.
Saint Amand. They'll beat Saint Amand.
I think that's gonna be a close game. That might be a shootout. Might be a shootout. You never can't count out Saint Amand. You never can count them out. Because these cats
at home.
Right, even though they're at home, Saint Amand, these last 5-6 years, their offense has been averaging over 30 a game. So I tell you.
But they ain't getting to the playoffs.
Well, they got to the playoffs a couple years ago. Remember that year that was like they went 10-2? That year when the area got flooded and they went on a run, but lost in the quarters. So Saint Amand is usually competitive. So I'm like this. I wouldn't be surprised. I like East Ascension to win it, but it's gonna be more closer than people think it's gonna be. I wouldn't underestimate. I wouldn't underestimate Saint Amand.
I think it's a beatdown.
I
think it's a beatdown. My opinion. I think it's a beatdown.
Well, what we both agree is going to be East Ascension winning that game.
Yeah, we both agree.
Mm-hmm.
Walker supposed to be up and coming now. I'm gonna say East Ascension.
I'll take East Ascension too.
George.
Oh, we didn't lose you.
I'm looking at.
No, I'm here. Y'all got me. Listen, Chad Mahaffey's an elite football coach. All right, this we know. I don't like the Wildcats at all in that spot at East Ascension. East Ascension gets it done.
Denham Springs. They're at Denham Springs. I got Denham Springs.
I got Denham Springs too.
I mean, it's 2-1, dude. I mean, I'm gonna go with the Spartans.
All right, that's who you pick. Live Oak at home. They'll be Live Oak.
They'll crown Live Oak.
They'll be Live Oak, yes.
Yeah, and then they end with Dutchtown at home. I think they'll be.
That's another win.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. All right, that's that for them. We go to Denham Springs schedule. They open up at home against Mandeville. That's a win.
Win as well. Agreed.
Yeah, Mandeville got a new coach. I think Denham Springs gets it. That's one win for them.
All right. On the next week, on a Thursday, they host Glen Oaks. That's a win.
Yeah, that's simpleton. Very simple. Yeah, they'll get it.
After that, at home against Liberty. That's a win.
That's a win. Mm-hmm.
I agree. 3-0.
3-0.
Then they host Franklinton. That's a win.
4-0.
4-0.
Week 5, they host St. Thomas More. I'm going with the Cougars of St. Thomas More. I think Denham Springs loses that game.
Well, I mean, the smart money is to go with the team that can actually run the ball, and that's STM. I mean, yes, they can sling it, but I need a team that can out-physical Denham Springs if you're going to beat them, and St. Thomas More can out-physical them, and they'll win. BK, that's close, but I'm going to go with the Cougs.
6-0 Denham Springs.
Ooh.
6-0.
My boy going out here.
I'm like this. If you going for a game to send a message that we are a contender for state championship, this is the game. It's gonna be close.
Mhm.
I'm going with Denham for the win. I'm going with Denham.
I say this.
My boy going out on a limb, Jared Boyd.
I'm like this. If I be wrong,
Go
I'm
ahead,
wrong.
son. Step out. It's all good.
Hey,
That secondary with the Sean McBride and number 7, Mason. Mason's his first name. His last name starts with a V. I don't want to mess it up. Be hard to throw on those guys, be honest with you. But can they stop the running game of Hutch Swilly? That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
And Reggie says they are not beating STM. So Reggie's on our side, not on EK side on that one.
Of course. I'm like this, y'all. I'm like this. If Denham Springs pull this off, there gonna be some sick people on next week's show. I'm like, I'm gonna be humble.
No, I won't feel sick.
I won't feel sick. I'll be all right. I'll be okay.
I mean, I'll wake up with my pants on the same way I did this morning. I'm good.
There you go.
I ain't tripping.
There you go.
All right. Then they host Brad Beard's old team, Live Oak. That's a win.
Brett Beard, Jared.
Brad or Brett?
It's Brett.
You say it's Brett. Okay.
Trust me, it's Brett.
All right, I got you.
Coach at Live Oak. I know the man well. Who's that game against?
Live Oak.
Live Oak.
Oh, they'll win that.
Okay.
They win on that. Yep.
Then they host Saint Amant. They win.
They win.
Win.
They win.
Well, they go to Saint Amant. I'm waiting for
They'll still win.
They'll still win, but it'll be an interesting game. They'll still win.
Okay. Then the game against East Ascension, I say they'll win. So does George. No, so does
George.
George says East Ascension.
Right.
Gotcha. Then they will go to Dutchtown. Win. And then their main rivals, Walker, they go to them, they'll win. So I have Denham Springs 9-1. So does George. VK has them 10-0. No, George got them 8-2.
Yeah, George got him 8-2.
I got 9-1. VK got him 10-0. Hey, pretty good. Pretty good. And I think that is expected of them. All right. We got to end this show. Okay? End this show. We want to thank Robin Fambrough for joining us, giving us all her information on all high school football teams in the Baton Rouge area. We are back with one more sports writer tomorrow. We are back with Nick Campbell of the La Observateur, and he's going to talk about the River Parish teams. And it's about 10 River Parish teams. We're going to talk to him about all those teams. We're going to ask him some questions about some of the players. You know, we got a lot to talk about with Nick Campbell tomorrow. It's going to be fun. So, Reggie, you know you're a River Parish guy with your family. I expect to see you on this thing tomorrow. Okay, Reggie? See you tomorrow. But other than that,
and thank goodness he might go back to your side after this year.
Uh-oh.
You know what I mean?
Look. He did what he did. Reggie, cool, Reggie. He did what he did. He get the slack from me. Now this other guy that sent his son to St. All, when he's a Shaw legend, he getting the slack from me also.
Hey man,
anyway,
that's okay. But all I know, we welcome all comers to St. All. We all welcome all comers, and like I said, you better. All I know, I know this is the last year for your little one, and I wish him the best. I wish him the best this school year, Reggie. No animosity, but after when he's done and gets that graduation, you better throw that set of stuff away after that. See, I'm like this. Your son is gonna be alumni. He can keep whatever. For you, toss it away, bro. You know where you're supposed to be at.
The man didn't ask him. Jared, he's telling him. You see that, huh?
I see that.
You see that? He's telling him. Throw that Seder stuff out. He didn't ask him. Come on, dog, decorum, baby.
Mm-hmm. That's all it is.
But no, on the real, Reggie, look, enjoy it and enjoy your kid, man. Look, Brother Martin, I get
Absolutely.
it. You know, rah says boomba, I get it. But I think what they're telling you is go where your bread's buttered. But for your son, it's Brother Martin. He's going to be a Seder for life. So He's given 4 years of his life to that school. A lot of money too. I mean, tuitions aren't exactly cheap, in an archdiocese. But yeah, I mean, look, you got one more year, make it the best year. And I know last year didn't end the way Brother Martin wanted it to. And the expectations aren't that high this year, but y'all still gonna be plenty good. Y'all still have a chance to do something.
I'm like this. They made it to the. I'm like this. They made the people. They didn't win the but they made it to the dome. They broke their curse. Now, like I said, it's time for another school to break a curse.
John Aaron, baby.
It's got to happen. No, y'all already broke y'all curse too.
Y'all there 2015.
Exactly. You St. James broke it. Eric broke it. Brother Martin broke it.
I know who's not gonna break it.
No.
All right, guys. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Those are my co-hosts, VK Jones and George Peppers. Our JB Sports Guy. We are back tomorrow night with Nick Campbell discussing the River Paris high school football team. We thank you for tuning in. Until tomorrow, y'all take care.